this is a very informal gathering, and we are here to talk about social issues, and we are trying to create a form of community, which is what this gathering is all about. And as such, we can share our views, opinions, and as things unfold in years, well, months to come, I should say, then clearly we'll be a part of something. Clearly, there's also a security aspect, and what are the potential security issues that we may face?
Thank you very much, Bobby. Can I also join with others, I'm sure, in congratulating Bobby and Emma on organising this very impressive conference. And I know that I come right at the end of a very busy day. I think it's been, just looking at the literature, a very important conference to hold. Like Jeff, maybe it's genetic, I don't know, not an athlete, though I can't believe he actually ended up coming first in a race. That's the one bit I don't believe. No. The rest, of course, is totally believable. But there is going to be an issue on security, which means the extra 10,000 people that we need will have to be trained and will have to then be deployed. And we do know that there are going to be, I think, 500 FBI officers coming to the UK around the time of the Olympics. And I would imagine that every single country coming over here, that's over 100 or so countries, will all be bringing their security officers as well. Because as well as being the centre of the world, which is what I think London is, it's also a very open, tolerant country and city. And therefore, the issues of security are going to be paramount. But that aside, I have no problem with welcoming the Olympics and saying quite openly that I think this is going to be great for multicultural Britain, and it's going to show our country and our city in a truly great light. My only regret is that more events are not happening in Leicester, which would have made it even more pleasurable for my constituents. Thank you.
If you go beyond Birmingham to the north of England to Wales and Scotland, the issue of legacy doesn't loom particularly large, except in the idea of having more sport. And that's the curious thing. So, in fact, it's very much a Greater London dimension. That doesn't diminish it in any way. And I would agree absolutely with Henry and Jeff in terms of what's going to really be important is, particularly for that part of London, whether it can lead to lasting benefit. Knowing East End of London well, my father was an ironmonger, he was a wholesale ironmonger, he used to deliver all through that area, so I knew it very well as a kid. There are huge problems which can be overcome, and the Olympics, if there is a good legacy, will help that. But if there isn't, then I think the people who really want to try and produce that legacy will need to be held to account. On the security aspect, it's very difficult to say. I mean, the issue is that we live in rather uncertain times. I think whether you like it or not, there are connections between what happens across the Middle East and South Asia and security perspectives in Britain, but there's a very strong tendency to over-egg those, to make them actually more serious than they really are. And I think to some extent, you can overdo it to such an extent that it actually harms community relations. And I think, in fact, what you need is a more steadying attitude. I don't think there's any particularly increased security issue about the Olympics. There doesn't have to be. And I think there's always the risk that people will use it for their own ends to say there's a bigger risk than there actually is.
It can bring business into an area, especially deprived communities. So I was always a big backer of the Olympic Games, especially when I heard that it was going to be, the whole Olympic Park was going to be situated in East London. I've seen what it's been able to do for places like Barcelona. You hear what it did in parts to Atlanta. And I've been to the Olympiastadion in Munich, and I saw Michael Jackson there actually in 1998, and I saw that there was a legacy there, not just as a home for Bayern Munich, but also as a fantastic concert venue. So I feel that as well as giving us some fantastic moments next year, the Olympics has a duty to bring in money, to bring in long-term development, and not just use the multicultural nature of London to defeat Paris and Moscow and some of the other cities as it did in 2005, but also to remember what the Olympics is about, because I tell you, and I speak to people all the time as a result of the radio station I've got and doing TV, a lot of people feel sold out. They don't believe there's going to be a legacy. They feel their lovely smiling faces were used to win the Olympics in Singapore in 2005, and they've been forgotten. So when it comes to contracts, when it comes to the business, when it comes to the jobs, the diversity, the long-term legacy, they feel they're going to be forgotten. And we've got to make sure that we hold Sebastian Coe and all those people who helped to bring the Olympics here to account. Because it's not just about them, it's not just about August next year, it's about successive generations.
I was approached just after we won the Olympics by a gentleman who has a tile business in Wembley. And he came to me and he said, "You're a Labour MP, this is a Labour government, I have one ambition now that we've won the Olympics, and that is to make sure my tiles are present somewhere in the Olympic Stadium. I don't know where it is, even if it's one tile, I want to know I'm part of this great enterprise." And over the next few years, I had a series of meetings with very senior cabinet ministers. I then went to the organising committee to try and make sure that this poor guy managed to get his tiles into the Olympic Stadium. The Olympic Stadium is built. There are no tiles from Mr. Govind in Wembley. And in a sense, I'm pretty disappointed because I meet some of those ministers now who are no longer in government, and I remind them that when I met them, I kept urging them to make sure that when it came to designing and building this incredible place, which is going to be with us hopefully for many, many years, that there was something about London and Londoners in the building. And not just the big companies like McAlpines, ordinary businesses, ethnic minority businesses, that would feel that they were part of what had been achieved. So in that sense, I think we probably failed to ensure that the legacy of the small person, the ordinary citizen, is not going to be represented in what is going to be an iconic building. I'm actually delighted that the Olympics is being held in London. I agree absolutely with Henry. I think it was only one because we are a microcosm of the world. This is the mirror that you can hold up and you can see every community, and you can hear every language, you can see every colour as far as London is concerned. And I think it was a no-brainer for London to be chosen over Paris. But I think we're all right to be concerned about the legacy, because I think the legacy still hasn't been secured. And of course we're going to have buildings, and hopefully those of us who are going to get tickets to go to the Olympics. My son managed to get 2 tickets to the hockey. I didn't get any. Hands up anyone who's got any tickets. Well, not very many. You lucky people who are going to be there. The rest of us are just going to be able to watch it on TV, or maybe be part of it by going outside. So I think that whatever happens, this is a great thing. It's going to be great to be able to say that we were alive and around at the time of this monumental sporting achievement. So I'm all for it, but I take Henry's point. He's quite right. What's going to be there at the end? And as a firm believer in multicultural Britain, I'm a product of multicultural Britain, having been, a multicultural world, having been born in Aden in Yemen, my parents having travelled from Goa to Mumbai and then to Yemen in order to find work, coming here as a 9-year-old, settling in West London. I think that multiculturalism, well, I'm a great supporter. Emma is a great supporter. And looking around this room, you are really a mirror of the world as well.
You have said, again, that you think the threat is being overstated. I'd like to ask the rest of the panel, particularly Keith Vaz, if that's okay, what you think the threat is. The threats are which groups you're coming from, it is coming from, and do you think it's been overstated in popular discourse?
I'm not responsible for the security of the Olympics. If anything goes wrong, it is certainly not the responsibility of the Home Affairs Select Committee. But I can tell you...
Investigation.
I will conduct the investigation afterwards, Henry, and you and Jeff and Paul will be my first witnesses. Look, we've got a problem because this is the biggest event in the world. We have been told that the people organising it, G4S or Metropolitan Police or whoever is finally going to sign it off, are going to need an extra 10,000 security officers in order to police the Olympics.
I think there's one question I think is pretty bugging most of us even today, and that's when the Olympics happens, what will the transportation system be like? Have you got anything you can add to that, Jeff?
I'm going to give you a very quick example of what I see in East London, a phenomenon. Every Friday afternoon, I see my Muslim brothers. Friday is a very important day. Friday afternoon, I see them in their Mercedes, in their Audis, in their Toyotas, driving around, quickly trying to get to the mosque, sometimes double parking, three-point turn, looking for spaces, rushing to get to the masjid, to the mosque on time. And in the same area of East London, I see the Hasidic Jewish community trying to get home quickly for the Shabbat, some double parking, families in the back of the car, reversing around the corners, sometimes in the bus lane. They've got to get home in time. Jews and Muslims united in bad driving. I don't know, I think London is having a terrible time, and you only have to go on the tube during rush hour when there's no Olympics. So I don't know what they're going to do. These people who are going to come from all over the world, I don't think there's sufficient space in there for people to go on the train or whatever. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people are going to descend on London. It's going to be summer anyway, and it's going to be hot in those tubes. I don't know what they're going to do.
Yes, thank you, Bobby, for hosting this magnificent conference, and I'd like to salute all of your speakers. My name is Asser, and I run a small company called Arts Canteen. Anyway, this has nothing to do with the conference. My contribution is in two sections. The first one is a question to Keith, which is, he mentioned the gentleman from the tile shop called Govinda, and he said that we failed to, for these small businesses to take part in that initiative called the Olympics. So I'd like to ask him who he does blame when the government has failed.
We weren't even saying have his tiles, we were saying how do you actually choose the tiles that go into that? Please teach us. But at the end of the day, these contracts are given out, as far as I can see, on the basis of, well, it's like a club. If you have a main contractor like McAlpine, they will choose the people who they normally do business with. They are under no obligation to open things up and let people compete competitively in order to get their products into the stadium. So, of course, they will say, as Bobby reminded us, the stadium is built well before the Olympics is taking place. And that's because we got the contract and we used the people we normally do business with. We didn't use Govind from Wembley. But I still think that we ought to have given people a chance, because that's what we said at the time, the small business community, Londoners, having a stake in London. They gave us the example of the Atlanta Games. Was there a Games in Atlanta?
Yeah.
Yes, there was, yes.
Where there was a requirement that local black businesses, and well, it was local businesses, but most of them were local black businesses, should actually have a certain percentage of the contracts. And I think that our country actually, for all that we do in Emma and all we've done on this platform throughout our lives, and I've been in Parliament now for 25 years, we've actually not moved it forward to ensure that that happens, and I think that that is actually a failure. So I'm sorry for Mr. Govind. We will try and do something else for him. I don't know how, but in the future, we just need to be better at doing these things.
Personally, I'm pretty pissed off actually as a taxpayer and as a Londoner that I haven't got any tickets, that my wife hasn't got any tickets, that my daughter who swims at county level, 13 years old, hasn't got any tickets, and as a country, we're not teaching sports and we're selling off playing fields, but I guess that's another issue. But what I'm trying to get over being annoyed about it, because I think it's really important that for us as Londoners, or as British people, to welcome the world